What if the glittering golden age wasn't golden at all? What if the very faces that once lit up cinema palaces were busy pushing hateful myths, sometimes behind the camera, sometimes right on the screen? Tonight, we're dragging open Hollywood's dusty vaults to expose 25 legendary figures whose careers were soaked in racism. D.W. Griffith. Long before blockbusters, Griffith reinvented cinematic language with The Birth of a Nation and used that power to ignite white supremacy. He panned over burning villages with sweeping ride-to-the-rescue shots, portraying Ku Klux Klan riders as heroic knights, while black men, played by whites in blackface, were framed as predators. When the Municipi begged him to pull the film, Griffith doubled down, declaring any censorship un-American. His own father had been a Confederate colonel. The son wrapped those plantation stories in celluloid poetry, then handed it to audiences starved for post-war nostalgia. Riots erupted in Boston and Philadelphia. Klan membership quadrupled within a year. Griffith's filmmaking genius still mesmerizes scholars, but every crosscut reminds us genius can be weaponized, and that weapon changed America's racial landscape far beyond the silent era. John Wayne. Picture Monument Valley at dusk, Wayne's silhouette against crimson sky. Now picture the actor in a 1971 Playboy interview sneering, "I believe in white supremacy until the blacks are educated to a point of responsibility." He dismissed guilt over slavery, called indigenous nations selfish for wanting to keep their land, and said Hollywood was too soft on perverts. Earlier in the spoilers, he even dabbled in blackface for a lumber camp gag. Wayne's drawl and swagger set the mold for cinematic masculinity, but those same movies also painted Native Americans as savages who had it coming. Airports, schools, and streets once bore his name. Each now sparks furious petitions. The Duke's films still rake in syndication money, yet his own words brand him forever as the frontier's last unapologetic segregationist. Walt Disney. Behind the grin of a Missouri cartoonist lurked a studio that peddled plantation lullabies and minstrel crows. Disney okayed Song of the South, knowing NAACP leaders said it glorified slavery. In Dumbo, the wisecracking crows, led by one actually named Jim, spoke in exaggerated dialects written by white songwriters. Allegations of anti-Semitism swirled for decades. Even grandniece Abigail Disney publicly said, "Misogynist? Of course. Racist? Come on, look at the films." During labor strikes, Walt welcomed members of the rabidly anti-communist Motion Picture Alliance, a group notorious for xenophobic rants. While Disneyland piped "A Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow," Disney's worldview froze minorities in caricature. The company now locks Song of the South in a vault, but a million bootlegs ensure the film, and the prejudice it sings, never truly disappears. Al Jolson. Before sound film found its voice, Jolson's burnt cork grin belted "My Mammy" to euphoric crowds. The jazz singer is hailed as the first talkie, yet its very premise is a blackface performer chasing Broadway fame. Jolson claimed blackface honored African-American music. Critics called it theft-masking mockery. Throughout vaudeville tours, he'd smudge on grease paint, roll his eyes, and exaggerate every stereotype for laughs, then collect the profits denied to black artists he copied. Studios cut entire scenes of his later films when civil rights protests grew louder, but Jolson never apologized. Late in life, he bragged about teaching soldiers to sing plantation songs overseas. The curtain fell, but his rhythms remain sampled, reminding us how easily a catchy tune can drown out cruelty. Mickey Rooney. Blake Edwards' sparkling breakfast at Tiffany's pauses every time Mr. Yunyoshi storms in. Thick glasses, prosthetic teeth, shrill accent. That grotesque caricature was Mickey Rooney, once MGM's golden boy. He insisted audiences roared with laughter, yet Asian American groups still cite the role as textbook cinematic hate. Rooney's earlier career wasn't spotless either. In Babes in Arms and Babes on Broadway, he joined Judy Garland for minstrel numbers, joking about darkies while tap dancing in blackface. Decades later, festival screenings cut Yunyoshi entirely. Rooney complained about PC police but never addressed the harm. The same actor who symbolized youthful American vim inadvertently handed future generations a crash course in how casual racism can hide behind comedy. Judy Garland. Dorothy of Oz once smeared on ebony grease paint for everybody sing, crooning a mock spiritual as on-screen colored musicians shuffled behind her. MGM doubled down with Babes on Broadway. Garland and Rooney twirled in plantation rags singing Waiting for the Robert E. Lee. Offset Judy championed civil rights, but the films etched minstrel imagery into Technicolor memory. Her emotional power sold stereotypes as cute, proving racism could travel through pure vocal magic. Garland later called the routines embarrassing. Yet those reels spin on cable every holiday season, ensuring a new shock for viewers who only expected rainbows and ruby slippers. Fred Astaire. Astaire's elegance peaks in swing time during Bojangles of Harlem, a tribute to black tap legend Bill Robinson. Unfortunately, that tribute arrives in full blackface, complete with enlarged red lips painted onto his shadow via rear projection. Scholars debate whether the number was respectful homage. What's undeniable is that Hollywood wouldn't let Robinson himself share the spotlight. Astaire, lauded for meticulous choreographic taste, later admitted uncertainty about the routine, but never disavowed it. For audiences of color, the sequence undercuts the film's romantic glow, reminding us even the classiest tuxedo can cloak minstrel residue. Laurence Olivier. To critics, Olivier's 1965 Othello captured every nuance of jealousy, yet he performed it in pitch-black makeup, exaggerated voice, and bulging eyes. While Paul Robeson had already shown the world a dignified black Othello on Broadway, producers deemed Olivier's yellow-eyed caricature more bankable. Reviewers gushed, civil rights leaders fumed. Olivier defended the choice as historical tradition, ignoring Britain's bustling black acting pool. Today, streaming services add warning labels. Still, the sight of Britain's greatest thespian rolling his R's through prosthetic lips testifies to how great art can normalize degradation. Bing Crosby. Bing's warm baritone once serenaded America to sleep. But watch Holiday Inn and the Lincoln's Birthday segment jolts you awake. Crosby, Marjorie Reynolds, and an entire band donned blackface, warbling Abraham amid cotton props. Years earlier, he cracked minstrel jokes in Mississippi and Dixie. Studio marketers called the makeup quaint. Post-war audiences grew uneasy. TV edits snipped the scene, yet DVDs kept it intact with disclaimers. Crosby's defenders note he quietly funded black musicians. Detractors ask why a man so attuned to jazz felt fine parodying its creators. His buttery voice still sells Christmas compilations, but buried between tracks is a chorus of burnt cork ghosts. Cecil B. DeMille. Before widescreen spectacles, DeMille learned showmanship in traveling carnivals where ethnic exhibitions were common. That carnival eye never left him. On the Ten Commandments set, he enforced unofficial color lines in dining tents. White extras ate together while black extras waited outside. DeMille defended colonialism in scripts like Northwest Mounted Police, where indigenous rebels were savages tamed by Christian grit. Crew diaries recount him yelling, "Keep the blacks in the back, they spoil the shot's symmetry." He joined Walt Disney's Motion Picture Alliance, urging Congress to expose alien influences. His movies thrilled generations, yet they also taught audiences to cheer Western conquest as divine destiny. Spectacle? Absolutely. But the costumed pageantry concealed dog whistle sermons broadcast to millions. Eddie Cantor. Cantor's rolling eyes and lightning mugging made him a Depression-era superstar. Yet nearly every signature routine relied on burnt cork gags. In Whoopee, he cavorted in blackface singing about Darktown strutters. Radio listeners adored his calypso parodies delivered in mock dialects. When the Negro Actors Guild protested, Cantor shrugged. "I'm just giving folks a laugh." He lobbied studios to cast him as Amos of the still blackface radio duo Amos and Andy, thankfully turned down. Cantor later supported Jewish refugees, yet never apologized to black audiences. His war bond rallies raised millions, but between songs the same rubbery grin winked at Jim Crow. Clichés, showing good deeds can be wrapped in offensive packaging. Warner Oland. Born in Sweden, Oland transformed into Honolulu detective Charlie Chan by pulling his eyelids with spirit gum and slurring syllables into fortune cookie wisdom. From 1931 to 1938, he shot 16 Chan films, delivering lines like Confucius say to roaring laughter. Fox Publicity claimed Asian audiences loved his respectful portrayal, ignoring protests from Chinese-American groups who called the series yellow peril and friendly rapping. Off-camera, Oland bragged he learned Oriental mannerisms by studying laundrymen. Each ticket reinforced the idea Asians were inscrutable sidekicks speaking broken English. The irony? Hollywood's Chinese Exclusion Act lobby was still active. Oland's fake accent profited from a community legally barred from citizenship. Paul Muni. Muni earned 5 Oscar nods, but his 1937 role as Wang Lung in The Good Earth stands as a masterclass in yellowface audacity. MGM consulted Chinese scholars on rice farming, then cast a Jewish Austrian-American and slathered him with tan grease paint. He taped his eyelids, wore dental prosthetics, and spoke in stilted rhythms. Publicists hailed Muni's amazing transformation, while Chinese diplomats begged for authentic representation. He retorted, "Acting is becoming anything, not politics." The film's sweeping realism won hearts, but audiences left believing Chinese peasants were slow-speaking caricatures. Decades later, Asian actors still struggle against stereotypes planted by acclaimed method masters like Muni. Luise Rainer. Rainer won back-to-back Oscars, her second for playing Oland opposite Muni. Producers refused to hire Anna May Wong, an actual Chinese-American star, citing miscegenation rules because Muni wasn't Asian. So Rainer endured rubber eyelids, heavy bronzing, and silent servant posture. Reviewers celebrated her ethereal dignity while ignoring the insult of sidelining real minority talent. Rainer later said she regretted the role, but insisted audiences must judge by context of the times. Context or not, every award photo of her clutching that golden statuette is a snapshot of systemic exclusion wearing a polite smile. Katharine Hepburn. Hepburn shattered gender norms, yet in 1944, she also shattered cultural authenticity. Cast as Chinese rebel Jade Tan, she wore heavy tan makeup, slanted eyebrow prosthetics, and spoke in clipped cadences. MGM marketed her as the bravest woman in China, while real Chinese troops were fighting Japanese occupation without Hollywood's spotlight. On set, she defended the choice. The role demands truth of feeling, not ancestry. Asian American soldiers stationed abroad wrote angry letters home. Hepburn's feminist legacy endures, but Dragonseed lingers as proof that progressive ideals can still ride on disgraceful representation. Shirley Temple. Those dimples could disarm any critic until you watch The Littlest Rebel or Dimples. Temple, then 7, dons blackface alongside tap legend Bill Robinson, singing about pickaninnies while Confederate troops march proudly past. Studio press books called the scenes adorably quaint. Temple later became a diplomat, distancing herself from the routines as studio decisions. But every Christmas rerun reminds viewers how childhood innocence was weaponized to soften Confederate nostalgia. The irony, Robinson broke color barriers dancing with her, yet Hollywood still cloaked their partnership in minstrel imagery. Temple's sugar-coated performances prove racism can hide behind even the sweetest smile. Jerry Lewis. Known for pratfalls and elastic faces, Lewis repeatedly mined racism for laughs. In The Geisha Boy, he squinted behind thick glasses, bowing and yammering so solly apologies. On talk shows, he'd mock Chinaman accents, clutching imaginary camera lenses to spoof Japanese tourists. In a 1972 telethon, he blurted, "If you're black and you run, you're a looter." When journalists challenged him, Lewis shrugged. Comedy is exaggeration. Lighten up. His charity work for muscular dystrophy raised billions, yet disabled activists complained he portrayed them as pitiful. Likewise, his Asian caricatures turned vibrant cultures into slapstick fodder. Lesson: philanthropy doesn't erase prejudice. Sometimes it bankrolls it. Peter Sellers. Long celebrated for chameleon-like brilliance, Sellers pushed transformation into outright mockery. In The Party, he played Hrundi Bakshi, an Indian actor who mangles English and litters conversations with "big" and "thank you very much." Sellers slathered on dark makeup, glued a mustache, and improvised jokes about curry breath and sacred cows. Earlier, in Dr. Strangelove, he lampooned a Japanese captain. By 1973, he doubled down as the diabolical Dr. Fu Manchu. When a BBC interviewer suggested the performances were racist, Sellers smirked, "I'm an actor. I wear skins." Fans argue satire. South Asian viewers call it lazy cruelty, aired at dinnertime reruns. Sellers' comedic genius is undeniable, but each dialect gag reminds us talent wielded without empathy can punch down harder than any slapstick pratfall. James Cagney. Cagney's gangster snarl defined grit, yet 1942's Yankee Doodle Dandy freezes mid-plot for a blackface tap routine called Strolling. In it, Cagney paints his face, swings a cane, and sings about Darktown. Earlier backstage photos show him rehearsing minstrel numbers on Broadway's Ziegfeld Folly circuit. While promoting the film, he quipped to reporters, "You can't beat a coon song for jolting an audience awake." During USO tours, he entertained troops with Down on the Swanee. Cagney later marched for union rights but never addressed his minstrel past. Thus, the poster boy of patriotic cinema also preserves stereotypes that patriotism too often ignored. Bob Hope. Hope's rapid-fire jokes warmed war-zone tents, yet many lines chilled audiences of color. On radio, he joked Japanese soldiers look alike, smell alike, and surrender alike. His 1941 ghost comedy, The Ghostbreakers, squeezes in blackface drag and voodoo stereotypes. In Road to Bali, he calls local islanders cannibals with coconuts for brains. During a 1953 Oscars rehearsal, crew recall Hope wisecracking that black nominees should bring flashlights in case they're seated in the back. When civil rights leaders protested, he shrugged, "I kid everybody, that's equality." Comedy may heal, but for Hope, the punchline often landed hardest on those already bruised by segregation. Lon Chaney Sr. Chaney's silent-era mastery of makeup birthed horror classics. Yet some transformations demonize real cultures. In Mr. Wu, he taped eyelids, painted a Fu Manchu mustache, and stalked the screen as a vengeful Chinese patriarch. Earlier, in The Hunchback, he smeared coal dust for gypsy caricatures. In The Penalty, his villains snarled racial epithets at Italian immigrants. Chaney defended his process. Its art, pain and ugliness are universal. The studio touted his oriental mystique, ignoring Asian actors barred from lead roles. His legacy as Hollywood's first makeup virtuoso stands. But every latex fold and painted crease warns that innovation unchecked by conscience can breed ugliness beyond prosthetics. Boris Karloff. Karloff chilled audiences as Frankenstein's monster, yet his most insidious role was human. Sax Rohmer's Dr. Fu Manchu in The Mask of Fu Manchu. Swaddled in silk robes, Karloff's villain proclaims, "Kill the white man and take his women," a rallying cry for yellow peril paranoia. Makeup artists slanted his eyes, waxed his brows, and accentuated teeth for reptilian menace. Review boards from China to Malaysia condemned the film. MGM shrugged, citing ticket sales. Karloff had earlier donned bronze grease paint to play an Arab warrior in The Mummy and a native guide in Unconquered. Off stage, he supported children's charities, but never apologized for caricatures that fed racist propaganda on both sides of the Pacific. Lou Costello. Half of Abbott and Costello's beloved duo, Lou Costello mined minstrel tropes for vaudeville laughs long before Who's On First? In Society, he appears in blackface, bug-eyeing through hotel lobbies while hotel staff shriek. Radio scripts preserved gags about lazy-colored bellhops. Touring the South, Costello told segregated crowds, "We brought the darkies with us. Just look in the mirror." Critics labeled him a comedic bulldozer, funny but crushing nuance. Modern revivals of their films now skip entire sequences, leaving jump cuts where racist humor once drew applause. Alec Guinness. Guinness could vanish into any role, sometimes literally into other ethnicities. In Lawrence of Arabia, he painted his skin to portray Prince Faisal. While praised then, Arab critics call it brown-faced diplomacy. In A Passage to India, he resurfaced as Hindu mystic Professor Godbole, donning dark tan makeup and a sing-song lilt. Earlier, in Oliver Twist His Fagin, complete with prosthetic nose and greasy sidelocks, revived anti-Semitic caricatures so potent that Germany banned the film. Guinness defended his choices, saying he pursued spiritual accuracy. Yet the thespian's Oscars rest on performances dependent on makeup kits that erased authentic representation, lasting reminders that technical brilliance can still distort truth. Walter Brennan, with 3 Oscars and a signature toothless chuckle, Brennan played America's favorite sidekick. Off-camera, he championed the John Birch Society, scorned civil rights marches, and allegedly celebrated Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination on set, telling colleagues, "one less agitator." Crew from the Guns of Will Sonnet recall him ranting that N lovers should be shipped back to Africa. During the Watts riots, he announced on radio, "Shoot to kill, peace is for whites." Producers tolerated him, figuring audiences loved his homely charm. Brennan's folksy screen presence dulled public memory of his poisonous views, proving racism sometimes hides not behind grease paint, but behind a kindly smile and a country drawl. 25 icons, countless awards, immeasurable influence, and a poisonous legacy we can't ignore. Cinema didn't merely reflect America's racial biases, it projected them onto 50-foot screens, wrapping prejudice in melody, heroism, and laughter. By confronting these stories, we strip away nostalgia's gloss and hold Hollywood accountable. If the industry could myth-make hate then, it could myth-make justice now, by elevating voices once silenced and telling histories once distorted. So the next time a classic rolls across your screen, watch with eyes wide open, admire the craft, but never excuse cruelty. Like and share if you believe shining a spotlight on the past can keep tomorrow's screens free of yesterday's shadows.